Good afternoon. We'd like to start today's briefing on the issue of Japan-China-ROK Summit meeting that was held earlier today in Tokyo. And also we would like to brief you about the result of Japan-China Summit meeting as well as Japan-China Foreign Ministers meeting that was held today. My name is Noriyuki Shikata, Deputy Cabinet Secretary for Public Relations from Prime Minister's Office, and next to me is Mr. Takeshi Matsunaga, Assistant Press Secretary of Foreign Ministry. At the outset, I'd like to ask Mr. Matsunaga to brief you on Japan-China Summit meeting as well as Japan-China Foreign Ministers meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Shikata. As introduced by Mr. Shikata, I'd like to first explain about this morning's Japan-China Summit. Unfortunately, the Korea-Japan Summit, which was originally scheduled to start from 1:55, appears to have been delayed. So my explanation today focuses on Japan-China Summit first. Japan-China Summit started from 8:15 and lasted about 1 hour and 15 minutes. From the Chinese side, Mr. Takeshi and also joined meeting, and from the Japanese side, Mr. Matsumoto, Foreign Minister, Mr. Kaieda, Minister for International Trade, Economy and Industry, as well as Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Fukuyama, joined the meeting. I'd like to skip the opening part of the meeting, which was open to the press. Initially, the two leaders discussed about the high-level exchanges, and in that respect, Prime Minister Wen Jiabao requested the visit of Prime Minister Khan to China at the earliest possible opportunity, and to which Prime Minister Khan responded by saying that he would like to visit China during the year when it is convenient for the both sides. And in addition, Prime Minister Khan stated that he wished to have Foreign Minister Matsumoto visit China at an early opportunity. And Prime Minister Wen Jiabao stated that he would welcome Foreign Minister Matsumoto's visit to China. And with respect to the earthquake, issues such as nuclear safety and disaster response, environment, energy efficiency, and reconstruction assistance were taken up. But I'd like to omit my explanation as to the first three items: nuclear safety, disaster prevention, and the environment and energy efficiency, as they were the issues extensively discussed in the Trilateral Summit. With respect to the reconstruction assistance, the two leaders discussed about the assistance for reconstruction as to the promotion of tourism, and in that regard, the two leaders agreed to promote the bilateral cooperation in various ways. For example, it was proposed from the Chinese side to send a mission regarding tourism from May 30 to June 4th, with the Minister for Tourism being the head of the delegation. And it was stated that the mission would comprise of as many as about 100 officials and representatives of the companies concerned. And it was also proposed from the Chinese side that the bilateral tourism exchange forum will be convened both in Tokyo and Osaka. From the Chinese side, it was also proposed to send a mission with a view to promoting reconstruction assistance and promote trade and investment. In that respect, it was stated that the procurement of products from the Tohoku region, as well as the export promotion and exchanges of the company by two countries' companies concerned were mentioned. And from the Chinese side, also reference was made with respect to the increase of export from Japan for agricultural and other products. And in that respect, it was stated that with the proviso that the safety of the Chinese nationals will be ensured, it was stated that the regulations and restrictions will be relaxed. More specifically, it was stated that from the current import ban from as many as 12 prefectures of Japan, it was stated that Yamanashi Prefecture and Yamagata Prefecture will be exempt from that current restrictions, and also the requirement for the certificate for new radioactive examination will no longer be necessary with respect to Japanese products, except such products as dairy products, vegetable, and maritime products. Also, discussion was focused on people-to-people exchange. From the Japanese side, it was stated that invitation program will be started with a view to inviting people engaging in tourism. And it was also stated that further efforts will be made to expedite the procedure for visa application. And from the Chinese side, it was stated that license will be given to one Japanese tourism company active in China to give it a license for to engage in tourism, outbound tourism for Chinese people. And there are several other issues discussed with respect to those, the area of reconstruction and tourism promotion. Excuse me. Beside that area, discussion was there was a discussion about such issues as regional issues, including North Korea. Prime Minister Khan stated that it is necessary to have the North Korea demonstrate positive action, and in that respect, he expected continuing influence from the Chinese side towards North Korea. And it was also stated by Prime Minister Khan that the enrichment of uranium by North Korea is clearly against the relevant UN Security Council resolutions, as well as the agreement of the six-party talks. So I'd like to stop here, and later on I'm happy to answer any question, if any. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Matsunaga. Now I'd like to brief you about the Japan-China-ROK Summit meeting, which was held this morning for about 2 hours. As far as the agenda of this summit meeting is concerned, there was a focus in terms of discussion on nuclear safety, renewable energy, energy efficiency promotion, and disaster management and trilateral cooperation. From Prime Minister, I would like to just focus on what the Prime Minister mentioned at this summit meeting. At first, at today's summit meeting, he extended his hearty welcome to both Chinese leader and South Korean leader for their visit to Japan and to the affected regions yesterday. And the leaders had a moment of silence to express condolences to the people who have lost their lives in the great East Japan earthquakes. Prime Minister also thanked that not only both leaders visited disaster-stricken areas of Sendai and Fukushima yesterday, but in Fukushima the two leaders tried the local produce, which Mr. Khan showed that offered great support to the people suffering because of reputational damage. And he also touched upon the issue of economy. Although the Japanese economy is facing challenges, in the second half of this year, we are expecting to start to see demand for the reconstruction, which will help the economy under these circumstances. And also, he mentioned that during the last 20 years, Japanese economy has gone through economic slump, and this disaster is the kind of the crisis of crises, and he expressed his determination to take this opportunity to rejuvenate Japan into a country with vigor, and he will do his utmost toward the reconstruction of the country. And in promoting reconstruction, he mentioned that he will undertake reconstruction that is open to the international community. And in this regard, by establishing the Reconstruction Design Council for the creation of a country strong against disasters, he has asked the formulation of blueprints toward that direction. And getting into the trilateral cooperation issues, first about the nuclear safety, renewable energy, and disaster management issues. He made it clear that he wishes to promote trilateral cooperation in these areas. Of course, we have received the very generous support both from China and ROK after the great quakes, and he also mentioned with regard to nuclear safety that Japan is committed to ensuring the nuclear safety, and in addition to existing energy mix, which is centered on nuclear power and fossil fuels, there will be two additional pillars, which are renewable energy and promoting conservation or saving of energy. And in this area, he wishes to collaborate with both countries. And he moved on to explain the status of Fukushima Daiichi, and he expressed his readiness to continue to provide information at the utmost level of transparency, as well as rapidly to both countries. And also today we agreed to issue a separate document on nuclear safety, and Japan will share the experiences and lessons learned from these accidents with the international community, and in the context of trilateral cooperation, we would like to deepen our consultations both at expert level and high-level consultations toward the improvement of the safety of nuclear power generation. And also we wish to promote cooperation with IAEA as well. And another issue is the safety of Japanese food products and other products. And Mr. Khan explained that he wishes both countries to respond to take measures based on scientific grounds, because in Japan there is very strict safety measures being ensured, and so this is a very important point from the Japanese perspective. And next, on the issue of promoting renewable energy and improving energy efficiency, the three countries face common agenda in terms of tackling climate change and coping with resource restraints. And through the introduction of additional renewable energy sources and improving energy efficiency, we should promote collaboration with a future-oriented posture toward the achievement of sustainable development. And this is very important also in relation to the climate change related measures. And nextly, on the issue of disaster management, we wish to strengthen trilateral cooperation based on the experiences and lessons learned from the Great East Japan earthquake, namely, number one, the carrying out the trainings and improving capacity or capacity building of the three countries' authorities, ensuring the smooth communication, smooth and rapid communication after disaster takes place. Number 3 is to facilitate the acceptance or dispatch and acceptance of emergency rescue teams, as well as dispatching aid materials. And number 4 is promoting the sharing of technologies as related to disaster management. So these are the examples, and in this regard, the newly to be established Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat, which will be established in ROK later this year, could be one venue for promoting such collaboration. And there are other issues, specific items that were touched upon, and I will just go quickly through those items. One is the cooperation in the area of economic growth. Three countries' GDP is about a little over 70% of East Asian economies, and promoting economic cooperation among the three countries would contribute to the economic growth of the region. And as was mentioned at the joint press conference, there were a discussion of trilateral investment treaty as well as trilateral FTA. And there was agreement on the need and importance of reaching trilateral investments agreement negotiation as early as possible, and also on the joint study of trilateral FTA. This joint study is aimed at being completed by the end of this year. And there was a reference discussion about the promoting tourism among the three countries, and there is a numerical target, which is 26 million tourists being exchanged among the three countries by the year 2015. Just for your information, in 2010, the figure was 16.5 million. So we are talking about adding another 10 million within the next 4 or 5 years. They also touched upon the issue of rare earth and other minerals trade. And Mr. Khan mentioned that our economies are so interdependent that if the mineral resources, including rare earth, are not supplied in a smooth fashion, that could affect economic activities of all the countries, all the three countries. And it is important to promote dialogue toward a stable supply of such mineral resources. They also discussed promoting the collaboration among customs authorities, and also there was a discussion of the promoting human and cultural exchanges among the three countries. And in this regard, there is an initiative called Campus Asia among the three countries in order to promote trilateral college level exchanges among the three countries, which could lead to acceptance of the courses or mutually recognizing the courses toward graduation and so forth. And they also touched upon some of the environmental and sustainable development related issues, including the biodiversity issues and the trilateral environmental collaboration. In fact, among three countries, environmental ministers has been promoting cooperation for years, and there are specific agenda items, the priority items which were agreed among the environmental ministers on 10 areas, which includes issues like environmental education or yellow sand issues, or the issue of e-waste, the waste of electronics goods being going across the borders and so forth. So there are numerous areas where the trilateral collaboration, especially in the field of environment, is being promoted. There was also discussion of the ensuring safety of the sea or the ocean, and they agreed on the promoting collaboration in ensuring the safety of the sea, as well as development policy. As you are aware, both ROK and China have been stepping up their respective aid programs to developing countries, and we wish to share collaboration. And very lastly, there is, as I mentioned, the establishment of a new secretariat of Japan-China-ROK cooperation, and this is going to be established later this year, and would be is expected to play a big role in terms of promoting trilateral collaboration. So I wish to stop here and open the floor for questions.
びっくりした。Thank you. Lindsay Whip from the Financial Times. Could you sort of clarify the present status of the products, whether food or otherwise, that are banned by Korea and China, and what exactly the bans they've lifted this time? And connected with that, I mean, obviously we saw yesterday that that Mr. Lee and Mr. Wen both went to Fukushima and ate local products. But if those products are still banned, it's a bit confusing as to why they would eat them if they felt they were not safe enough for their own countries. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Perhaps I'm not very clear as to the state of affairs of the Republic of China, Republic of Korea. But with respect to China, it was announced on 9th of April that as far as 12 prefectures, import of food products, agricultural products, and are banned. And these prefectures are Fukushima, 栃木、群馬、茨城、千葉、宮城、山形、新潟、長野、山梨、埼玉、and Tokyo. And with respect to import of foodstuff and agricultural products from other prefectures, it is required to have radioactive measurement, as well as issuance of certificate of origin. And this time, the announcement from the Chinese side concerned the exemption from the rules I have referred to with respect to Yamanashi Prefecture as well as Yamagata Prefecture. And with respect to radioactive material measurement, the certificate of measurement of radioactive materials would not be required with respect to food products, except dairy products, vegetable, and maritime products. At this point in time, we are not aware of which specific products are still under the application of the newly introduced rules from April 9th. That have to be ascertained. Thank you.
はい、新華社通信のコーです。
Call from Xinhua Press. My first question is that Premier Wen Jiabao visited the disaster-stricken area yesterday and also visited 2 evacuation shelters, and he met in person with the victims, afflicted people. What is the view, or how has the Japanese government looked at his visit to the area? That's my first question. Now, this Trilateral Summit, apparently it was agreed that Trilateral cooperation would further be promoted. Since the first Trilateral Summit meeting in 2008, Trilateral cooperation, I'm sure, have advanced in different areas. But for this particular Trilateral Summit, do you think that the Japanese government was able to realize the results that Japanese government had hoped for? In the view of the Japanese government, do you think that this Trilateral Summit was successful in terms of delivering the results that the Japanese government wanted? And also, the Japanese side to ROK and to China have requested that the import restriction of the Japanese produce be either lifted or mitigated. I think that was a statement by Premier Kang. Now, particularly the agricultural produce, in that context, how would Japanese government guarantee the safety of the Japanese produce, particularly the agricultural product? Thank you. Yesterday, Premier Wen Jiabao visited Sendai, and then from Miyagi Prefecture went to Fukushima. As Prime Minister Kan has publicly stated, the government of Japan is truly appreciative, grateful for his visits. And of course, that is true for the Korean president visiting the disaster area, Mr. Lee Myung-bak. So the two leaders personally visited the disaster-stricken areas. And for the Japanese people, it was a wonderful gesture or act. I think the Japanese people really appreciate this to be something which is truly wonderful gesture. So I think it was truly a welcoming visit. Now about this trilateral summit meeting, what had been the results? Now, of course, the meeting took place after the great disaster that hit the eastern part of Japan. And so the meeting was held in an environment where Japan is still struggling from the aftermath of the disaster, but the two leaders chose to visit the disaster area themselves. And I think they demonstrated a very strong political will that the three countries will continue to cooperate and assist each other. I think it's an important message of the result. As was explained at the outset, they talked about the nuclear safety. And also, the three leaders talked about the common agendas, the introduction of the renewable clean energy, the disaster prevention or management, and also tackling of the climate change. They are all issues imminent to all countries. So the agenda was very specific, very concrete, and it was agreed that they would actually work together. So it's not a desktop theory, something vague or just theoretical, but they really went down to earth to talk about the real problems. And I think has been helpful, and it will help to strengthen truly trilateral cooperation. Now, about the safety of food, even within Japan or inside Japan, the food safety is a matter of concern, particularly the concerns. There are concerns among the consumers about the safety of the food produced in Fukushima. Now, having said so, Japan has always been a country where the consumers were very demanding or sensitive about the safety of food. Now, so the Japanese government, the prefectural government, the local municipality governments, and the businesses try to accommodate the needs of the Japanese consumers, making sure that only safe products would be circulated or be sent to the market. That has always been the practice. So what is in the Japanese market is safe. And therefore, the same products will be shipped to outside of Japan. So in that sense, the degree of safety is the same, whether it is sold to the Japanese consumers or to the foreign consumers. So we don't think that the Japanese produce will cause any harm on whether it is a foreign consumer or the Japanese consumer.
I'm wondering why the Japanese government is putting such emphasis on the food issue, given the scale of other challenges in closer economic cooperation in this trilateral relationship. As we all know, and as the last foreign minister pointed out, agricultural exports account for only around 1.5% of Japanese GDP. Also, the continued use of the word fuhyo implies some kind of irrationality on the part of consumers, both in Japan and outside of Japan. I wonder why the Japanese government continues to use that word when, in fact, it would seem perhaps a more sound view to assume that consumers are making well-educated choices given the other choices in the marketplace. Thank you.
In the case of, for example, China, which of course attracted a lot of attention during this summit meeting yesterday and today. Because of the measures being introduced by Chinese authorities, we have found it extremely difficult to export our food items or agricultural produce, not only from 12 prefectures, but the other prefectures are also finding it almost impossible to export the food items to China. And this is because of requirements that there is a requirement of certificate of radiation-free that is issued by the government, or the certificate of the origin, the prefectures, and so forth. And this is, we do not think that many, I just mentioned the issue related to China, but this is not only related to China, but many countries have introduced import restrictions, not only Japanese agricultural products, but also other, for example, manufactured products. And we do not think that many of the measures are science-based. And this, we think, is lead to damaging the Japanese brand image. And also we have been interested in exporting, especially agricultural products to overseas, to reform our Japanese agricultural sector. So we attach a lot of importance, and also the affected areas economy depend on agricultural industry to a large extent. So I mentioned a couple of reasons, but we think that this is very important issue that as the government we should tackle.
Just concerning the use of the word fuhyo itself, which is often translated as groundless rumor, there is an argument that the continued use of such a term implies that the Japanese government is fully satisfied with its own efforts to demonstrate the safety of its food products and exports. Are you saying that the Japanese government should not be doing anything more on a scientific basis to demonstrate the safety of food products?
Oh, well, of course, my argument or point is based on the premise that we take necessary measures to ensure food safety. And when we are talking about scientific basis, that's our standard ensure the food safety. for those products distributed to the market. And when we talk about Fuhyo or reputational damage, what we are talking about is those damages caused by unscientific reasons.
The question on this, but just to push it a little bit farther, the use of that term seems to imply that consumers, wherever they are, either in Japan or elsewhere, are making a decision, a faulty decision, that given the truth, not a rumor, they would instead be buying Japanese products. The other argument would be the marketplace provides a range of options for consumers, including products from areas where there's no concern of any kind of radioactive contamination. So do not see any problem of communication in expressing the Japanese government's true intent to do everything that you're saying it's doing on a scientific basis by continuing to use this term Fuhyo.
I guess because we are kind of talking about the translation, we may not be talking about the same things. but for example, Fuhyo is translated into reputational damage, but some translation goes harmful rumors, or different notions being included. But the point that we are trying to make is, of course, number one, as related to Fukushima Daiichi, we need to make our data transparent, and we are trying to do that, and we need to. We are working on expanding our monitoring posts and so forth. And that's number one. And number two, we need to. Of course, we are carrying out ensuring food safety by governmental measures, number two. And number three is, of course, as you mentioned, at the end of the day, there are consumer choices. And that's something government will not force consumers, which products to buy. But what we think is problematic is there are government measures that restrict or sometimes prohibit entry of our products into specific overseas markets, which we do not think science-based.
Just a couple more questions. Firstly, there was some criticism, I think, both from South Korea and China about the transparency or communication between Japan and those countries when it came to, for example, letting the radioactive water into the sea. Was there any conversation about this sort of transparency in communications between the three countries, and if so, are they satisfied now, or was there further criticism? Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to explain about the conversation between Prime Minister Kan and Prime Minister Wen Jiabao in the bilateral meeting. There was a reference from Prime Minister Kan with respect to the release of low-level radioactive water to the sea. He explained that that was unavoidable. But having said that, he stated that it was regrettable. And he also stated that he would like to ensure the prompt and accurate provision of information on such matter. And Prime Minister Wen Jiabao responded that he would take note of the statement of the Japanese side that the release of radioactive materials would be controlled duly in accordance with the roadmaps published by TEPCO as well as the Japanese government. And he expected that the release of radioactive materials will be brought under control as early as possible. But he also stated that he wished to have the Japanese side understand that there is a concern as China is Japan's neighbor. And he added that China would extend all possible cooperation on this matter.
So are they satisfied now with the communication transparency the Japanese government and TEPCO is now providing, or is there still some questions about that? Not just necessarily the release of radioactive water into the sea, but in general, overall.
I think we are working harder to share relevant information as quickly as possible. And in the context of Trilateral Summit, Mr. Khan also explained his commitment, to provide relevant information at the maximum level of transparency, rapidly, and in a very accurate way. So this is our intention, and we do realize that the action taken, especially in relation to the release of contaminated water into the sea, caused a lot of anxieties in our neighboring countries, especially.
Completely different subject. I was just wondering whether there was any conversation between the leaders about the contested islands, whether it's the Chinese ones or the Korean ones during the summit.
No.
View at this summit, there was a new decision on the trilateral FTA. That is, before the end of this year, the joint study for the trilateral FTA will be completed, and President Lee said that from next year, there was talk that South Korea would like to enter the negotiations as soon as possible. And the Japanese government, in promoting FTA, would you promote the FTA negotiations trilaterally, that is simultaneous with China and South Korea at the same time, or would it be first with South Korea? As was just mentioned, a joint study on the trilateral FTA we hope to complete before the end of this year and go to the next stage. And among the three leaders, this was basically agreed upon, I believe. In relation to your question, between Japan and South Korea, the EPA negotiations have been ongoing, and currently such negotiations are being suspended. So we would like to resume such EPA negotiations, and the Japanese government expressed its hope and is endeavoring now to resume these negotiations. So which one will be promoted first? We would like to start where we can. We would like to start with the agreement that can be advanced earlier. For example, just because the Japan-South Korea EPA is suspended, we cannot go ahead with the trilateral or a Japan-South Korean FTA. That's not the case.
よろしいですか。はい。ではどうもありがとうございました。Thank you very
No
much.
further questions, and thank you very much.